Hi everyone! Welcome to Azad Revenge Stories channel. If everyone could just gather in the conference room real quick. That's how she said it, like she was about to announce the office Christmas party or something. Casual, almost cheerful. Then I watched her face as 12 of us filed in. She had this little smile, not a happy smile, the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. The kind that says, I know something you don't know. I remember checking my phone. 4:52 p.m. on a Friday. This should have been my first clue. She stood at the head of the table in her crisp white blazer, custom tailored. I noticed because I'd complimented it once, and she'd made sure to tell me it cost more than my monthly rent. As you know, the company has been going through some restructuring, she said, tapping her manicured nails on the table. And unfortunately, we've had to make some difficult decisions. That's when I saw the stack of manila envelopes beside her. 12 of them. Today will be your last day. The room went silent, like completely silent. You could hear the air conditioning. Someone's stomach growled. I think it was mine. And that's when she did it. She reached into her purse and pulled out a champagne bottle. Actual champagne. Dom Perignon. I wasn't going to share this today, but since we're all here, I got some good news this morning. The board approved my proposal. I'll be heading the entire division now with a 45% raise for, she actually made air quotes here, outstanding leadership during challenging times. She popped the cork right there in front of all of us, people who just lost their jobs, and she poured herself a glass. Nothing personal, she said, taking a sip. Just business. I watched her count bonus check calculations on her phone as security waited to escort us out. Hey guys, so that was 3 months ago. My name's Vanessa. I'm 31 and until that day, I was a senior project manager at Revite Solutions. Sorry, I know I probably look like a mess right now. I've been going back and forth about whether to even post this video, but after everything that's happened, I feel like I need to get this out there. Before I get into the rest of the story, if you're new here, please hit that subscribe button and like this video. Trust me, you're going to want to stick around for what happened next. It's a lot. Anyway, that woman with the champagne, that's Diane Mercer, my former boss. The woman who fired me and 11 others while celebrating her promotion. The woman who spent 6 months taking credit for my work. The woman who once told me I should dress for the job you want, not the job you have after I wore flats to a client meeting because I had sprained my ankle. After security walked us out that day, we all just stood in the parking lot holding our little boxes of desk plants and family photos. Nobody knew what to say. We'd just been fired with no warning, no severance, nothing. Just here's your envelope. There's the door. Keith from accounting started crying. He just bought a house. Rachel from UX was pregnant with her second kid. And me? I just helped land the biggest client in company history. The Zenith account worth millions. The one Diane was now taking credit for. This is complete garbage, I said, standing there in the parking lot. She can't just do this. But she could, and she did. That night I couldn't sleep. Just kept replaying everything in my head. 3 years at that company. Nights, weekends, holidays I'd worked through, the promotion I'd been promised, the clients who specifically asked to work with me, all gone because Diane needed to cut costs to get her bonus. I tried to do things right. Applied for unemployment, sent out resumes, had interviews where I tried not to sound bitter when they asked why I left my last position. Company restructuring, I'd say with a fake smile, like I hadn't been thrown away like yesterday's trash. 2 weeks later, I got a text from Marco, one of the IT guys who'd survived the layoffs. We'd always been friendly. He'd helped me recover a presentation when my computer crashed before a big meeting. You see this. He wrote with a link to the company's press release. Diane Mercer named Executive VP after securing exclusive Zenith partnership. The partnership I had built, the client I had landed, the deal I had structured. I threw my phone across the room, actually threw it, cracked the screen. When I finally picked it up, there was another text from Marco. There's something else you should know. Call me. I almost didn't. What was the point? That something in my gut told me to dial his number. Vanessa, he said when he picked up, I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but it's not right what she did. And there's more. He told me he'd been assigned to back up Diane's files for the transition. Standard procedure. But he found something. Emails. Dozens of them. Between Diane and executives at Vertex Systems, Revite's biggest competitor. She's been selling information, Marco said quietly. Product roadmaps, client lists, pricing strategies for months, maybe longer. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. This woman had fired us, stolen my work, and all while she was secretly undermining the entire company. Do you have proof? I asked. I made copies, he said, but I don't know what to do with them. If I go to HR, she'll know it was me. I've got 2 kids in college, Vanessa. I can't lose this job. I sat there for a long time after we hung up. My hands were shaking, not from fear, from rage. Pure white-hot rage. Because suddenly, I knew exactly what I was going to do. If you're still with me, seriously, thank you. Hit that like button if you've ever dealt with a toxic boss, because what I did next, well, let's just say it changed everything. First, I needed those emails. Meeting Marco directly was too risky. Diane had eyes everywhere, so we arranged a dead drop like something out of a spy movie. He left a flash drive in a waterproof bag taped under a specific bench in the park near the office. When I got home and plugged it in, I almost couldn't believe what I was seeing. It wasn't just a few emails. It was hundreds, going back almost 2 years. Diane had been selling company secrets since before she was even my boss. Details about clients, internal financial projections, upcoming product features, even salary information she used to help Vertex poach top talent. And the payments. Oh, the payments. Offshore account numbers, Bitcoin transfers, all carefully documented because apparently Diane was as meticulous about her betrayal as she was about everything else. The final email was dated the day before our firing. Need to reduce overhead by 15% this quarter to keep this arrangement profitable. We'll handle tomorrow. That was us. We were the overhead. I printed everything. 3 copies, one for me, one for backup, and one for what came next. But I knew emails alone wouldn't be enough. Diane was too connected, too protected. The board loved her. She played golf with the CEO. They wouldn't take the word of a fired employee with some suspicious emails. I needed more. I needed irrefutable proof, and I needed leverage. That's when I remembered something. During the Zenith negotiations, Diane had insisted on handling the final contract herself. She'd locked herself in her office for hours with it. At the time, I thought she was just being controlling. Now I wondered if she'd altered something, added a back door, created a vulnerability Vertex could exploit. I called Rachel, the pregnant UX designer who'd been fired with me. Before Revitech, she'd worked at a law firm. Knew contract language inside and out. I need your eyes on something, I told her, and I need you to not ask, why right now? I still had a copy of the original contract draft in my email. I sent it to her asking her to look for anything unusual, clauses that seemed out of place, loopholes. 2 days later, she called back. Section 17.3, she said, no preamble. It's weird. It grants extraordinarily broad access to Revitex systems for maintenance and integration purposes. No time limit, no scope restriction. Basically a blank check to Zenith's IT team to access whatever they want, whenever they want. Would that be normal? I asked. Not in a million years. Rachel said, this is the kind of clause that gets legal teams fired. It's a massive security hole. Now I understood Diane hadn't just sold information. She'd sold access. Permanent access with Zenith as an unwitting accomplice. I needed one more piece. Proof that Vertex was actually using this access, that the breach was real and ongoing. I reached out to Keith from accounting. Do you still have friends in the finance department? I asked. A few, he said cautiously. Fine. I need to know if there's been any unusual activity. Projects unexpectedly losing funding, clients suddenly backing out of deals, anything that doesn't make sense. A week later, he sent me a text with 3 words. Call me burner phone. When I did, his voice was low, tense. There's a pattern. Revite develops something new, announces it internally, and within weeks, Vert.x has a competing product at a lower price point. It's happened 6 times in the last year. The latest was the Morgan project canceled yesterday. because Vertex suddenly has the exact same technology. The Morgan project. My project. The one I'd spent months developing before I was fired. I had everything I needed now. Emails proving Diane sold secrets. Contract language creating a security vulnerability. Financial evidence showing the damage. But I still had one problem. No one at Revitech would listen to me. I was just a disgruntled ex-employee in their eyes. I needed someone they couldn't ignore. That's when I remembered Owen Caldwell, Revite's former CFO. He retired suddenly last year after clashing with the board over strategic differences. Everyone knew he'd been pushed out for questioning the direction the company was taking. He had nothing to lose and everything to gain by proving he'd been right. I found his contact through LinkedIn and sent a message regarding Revite's security breach, urgent and confidential. He agreed to meet me at a coffee shop downtown. I brought my evidence, all of it. Owen was in his 60s, silver-haired with the tired eyes of someone who'd seen too much corporate politics. He listened without interrupting as I laid out everything I'd discovered. When I finished, he just nodded slowly. I always knew something wasn't right with Diane's numbers. He said the growth in her division was too perfect, too consistent. No market fluctuations, no setbacks, just steady upward progress that defied industry trends. He looked at the emails, the contract, the financial analysis. "You've done remarkable work, Vanessa," he said finally. "But you're right about one thing. They won't listen to you." He paused. "But they'll listen to me and to this." He held up a small leather notebook. "My insurance policy, every board meeting, every closed door conversation, every decision for the 15 years I was CFO, including some things about our current CEO that he definitely doesn't want made public." Owen smiled for the first time. "Let's talk strategy." I felt something I hadn't felt in months, hope mixed with something else, something darker, more satisfying. The first part of our plan was already in motion because while I'd been gathering evidence, I'd also been monitoring Diane through social media. And I knew she was scheduled to present at the annual Tech Leadership Conference next week. Her first major public appearance as Executive VP, the coronation she'd been waiting for. It was perfect timing. Too perfect. I'm going to pause here for a second. This is where everything changed. If you're invested in this story, please hit that like button and subscribe, cause part 2 as well. It's where justice finally happened. And trust me, you don't want to miss it. The morning of the Tech Leadership Conference, I woke up at 5:00 a.m. Couldn't sleep. My stomach was in knots. Not from doubt. I was way past doubt. This was anticipation. I'd rehearsed every step of our plan, knew exactly what would happen and when. But still, there was that voice in the back of my head saying, what if it doesn't work? What if she gets away with it? What if she wins again? I silenced that voice by opening my laptop and looking at the pictures from the company holiday party, the one where Diane had pulled me aside and whispered, "You know why you'll never get my job? Because you care too much about the wrong things. People, feelings. I care about numbers, and numbers are the only thing that matter." Well, today she'd learned that some numbers matter more than others, like the number of people she'd hurt, the number of lives she'd damaged, the number of laws she'd broken. The conference was being held at the Grand Meridian downtown, a big fancy hotel with crystal chandeliers and those tiny sandwiches that cost like $1.20 each. The kind of place Diane loved. The kind of place where she could show off her custom suits and designer shoes. I showed up dressed for battle, not in anything flashy, just a simple black dress, hair pulled back, minimal makeup, professional, forgettable, the opposite of Diane's look-at-me style. According to the conference schedule, Diane would be speaking at 2 p.m. Innovative leadership and challenging markets. That was rich considering her innovation was just selling other people's work to the highest bidder. Owen was already there when I arrived, chatting with former colleagues in the lobby like he was just another industry veteran attending a conference. No one suspected he was about to detonate a bomb. At 1:30, I spotted her, Diane, surrounded by admirers laughing that practiced laugh of hers. The one that sounded like it came from a Hauter manual on executive presence. She hadn't seen me yet. I texted Owen, "Target in sight." He responded immediately. "Board members all present. CEO in the front row." Perfect. At 1:45, people started filing into the main conference hall for Diane's presentation. I slipped in quietly and took a seat in the back. From my vantage point, I could see everything. Diane at the side of the stage, checking her notes. The Revitech CEO and board members in the reserved front section. Owen positioned strategically near the emergency exit, and Zenith CTO, who'd flown in specifically for this presentation, not knowing he was about to learn how his company had been used as a pawn in Diane's game. At precisely 2 p.m., the conference moderator stepped up to the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker has been making waves in the industry with her innovative approach to market expansion and talent management. Please welcome Revivate's new Executive Vice President, Diane Mercer. Applause. Standing ovation from the Revitech contingent. Diane walking on stage with that practiced confidence, adjusting the microphone, smiling out at her audience. Thank you so much for that warm welcome. She began, "It's such an honor to be speaking to you today about leadership that drives results." I almost laughed out loud, the audacity. At Revitech, we believe in innovation through integrity, she continued. Our recent partnership with Zenith Technologies represents the kind of forward-thinking collaboration that defines our approach. That was our cue. I texted Owen. Now, what happened next will stay with me forever. The massive screen behind Diane, which had been showing her presentation title, suddenly changed. Instead of her carefully designed slides, it displayed an email from Diane to a Vertex executive. The subject line: Rev Zenith contract vulnerability access confirmed. Diane didn't notice at first. She was too busy talking about synergistic opportunities or some other corporate nonsense. But the audience saw it. The murmuring started, people pointing, confusion spreading. When Diane finally turned around, her face, I wish I had a picture of it, the shock, the blood draining from her cheeks, the realization that something was very, very wrong. She tried to continue. There seems to be some technical difficulty, but the screen changed again. Another email, this one detailing exactly how much she'd been paid for the Morgan project specifications. By project. By now, the Revite CEO was on his feet. The Zenith CTO was frantically typing on his phone. The room had gone from professional conference to chaos in seconds. This isn't. Diane stammered. Another email appeared, and another: financial transactions, meeting arrangements, the complete evidence of her 2-year betrayal playing like a slideshow for the entire industry to see. The security team rushed to the AV booth, but they were too late. Owen had coordinated with a tech-savvy friend of mine who'd set up a remote access system that couldn't be easily shut down. And then came the final blow. The contract page appeared with Section 17.3 highlighted in glaring yellow. Below it, a simple message. This vulnerability has compromised Revite systems for 176 days. Estimated data loss, $47.3 million. The numbers Diane cared so much about in bright red. Someone killed the projector finally. But it didn't matter. The damage was done. Every person in that room had seen the evidence, including reporters from 3 major tech publications. Diane stood frozen on stage, microphones still in hand, as the Revitech CEO stormed up the steps toward her. Security was everywhere. People were taking photos, videos. It was beautiful chaos. I slipped out during the commotion. In the lobby, I passed Owen, who gave me the smallest nod. Mission accomplished. Outside, the sun was shining. I took a deep breath of fresh air and hailed a cab. By the time I got home, my phone was blowing up with notifications. The story was everywhere. Corporate espionage exposed at tech conference. Revitech executive court selling secrets. Zenith Revitech partnership in jeopardy after security breach revelation. I turned off my phone and poured myself a glass of wine. The good stuff I'd been saving for a special occasion. This definitely qualified. The next morning, I had 3 voicemails from Revit's legal department and an email from the CEO himself asking no, begging for a meeting. Apparently, Owen had made it very clear who had uncovered the whole operation. I took my time responding, let them sweat a little. When I finally agreed to meet, it wasn't at their office. I made the CEO, the head of legal, and the board chair come to a small coffee shop of my choosing. On my terms, on my turf. They looked terrible, like they hadn't slept in days. Probably because they hadn't. MS. Reeves, the CEO, started using the formal name nobody ever called me. First, let me express our profound gratitude for bringing this situation to light. I just stared at him waiting. The board has terminated MS. Mercer's employment effective immediately. We are cooperating with an investigation into her activities, and we are in discussions with Zenith about how to move forward. I took a sip of my coffee. That's good to hear. The legal head jumped in. We'd like to discuss the possibility of you returning to Revate with appropriate adjustments to your position and compensation. Of course, I almost laughed. You fired me with no warning and no severance while my boss celebrated with champagne, and now you want me back. The board chair looked physically pained. We understand your reluctance, but you clearly have insights and skills that would be valuable to the company moving forward, especially as we attempt to rebuild client trust. I let the silence stretch uncomfortably before responding. I've received 4 job offers in the last 24 hours, I said, including one from Zenith, who seems quite eager to have someone they can actually trust, but I'm willing to consider returning to Revate under the following conditions. I pulled out a document I'd prepared, 5 pages of terms, reinstatement for all 12 employees who'd been fired, back pay, promotions, a complete restructuring of the executive compensation system, an independent board audit, and a new position for me, Chief Ethics Officer, reporting directly to the board with veto power over any contracts or partnerships I deemed questionable. The CEO's eyes widened as he read. This is quite comprehensive. Those are my terms, I said, standing up. You have until tomorrow to decide. After that, I take the Zenith offer and bring my team with me. I walked out feeling tennis tee tall. They accepted everything, every single condition, and 2 weeks later, I walked back into Revitech, not as the employee who'd been discarded, but as an executive with more real power than Diane had ever had. Rachel, Keith, and all the others came back, too, with raises, promotions, and written apologies from the company. As for Diane, well, her story didn't end quite as well. The investigation found that she'd been selling secrets to not just 1, but 3 different competitors. She's facing multiple federal charges. Her assets have been frozen, and last I heard, she's having trouble finding a lawyer willing to take her case. Sometimes when I'm working late at the office in my new corner suite with the view of the river, I think about that day in the conference room, the champagne, the air quotes around outstanding leadership, the casual cruelty, and I smile knowing that while Diane cared about numbers, I cared about people. And in the end, it was people who brought her down. People working together. People she'd underestimated. People she'd thrown away like they didn't matter. That was her biggest mistake, thinking we didn't matter. Because we did. We do. Everyone does. So that's my story. From fired to Chief Ethics Officer in 3 months. From humiliated to vindicated. From powerless to, well, not anymore. If there's one thing I want you to take away from this video, it's this. Never let anyone make you feel small. Never accept injustice because fighting seems too hard. And never ever underestimate what determined people can accomplish together. If you've stuck with me through this whole story, thank you. It wasn't easy to share, but I felt like it might help someone else who's going through something similar. If it did help you, or even if it just entertained you, please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. I'll be sharing more stories about corporate ethics, workplace justice, and how to navigate toxic situations while keeping your integrity intact. Drop a comment below if you've ever dealt with a Diane in your life, or if you have questions about standing up for yourself in the workplace. I read every comment, and I promise to respond because unlike some people, I believe that everyone deserves to be heard. Everyone matters, including you. Thanks for watching. This is Vanessa signing off, but not going away. Not ever again. I invite you to subscribe to the Azad Revenge Stories channel, like this video, and support me further by hitting the hype button, so the story in this video can be heard by many more people. Thanks to all.